everyone, and welcome to episode 20 of The Best You, a coaching podcast. It's Gary here again, and thank you very much for joining me for episode 20. That kind of went quickly, did it not, to get from 1 to 20? I remember vividly in the beginning thinking 20 is my target. If I get to 20 and I'm feeling a bit of momentum, I'm still feeling quite good about the delivery, then I think that's a good thing, and then that will be an inspiration or a motivation to continue. And here we are. It seems like literally just 5 minutes ago that I was recording number 1, but here we are, number 20. Thank you very much, of course, once again for joining me, and I hope you're doing great and investing in whatever work it is you're committed to doing to getting yourself closer to being the best version of you at this time. Now, I mentioned last time that I've actually, maybe even the previous 2 pods now that I think about it, that I'm going to start inviting some guests on just to kind of mix it up a little bit. I don't think I'm going to do that for this regular slot. I think I'll just do the kind of, the reframe or the kind of redelivery of the blog topic on this particular pod, but it will be additional content that I can put out at other times if you are liking what you hear and you'd like to hear from some other different people on that. And it has picked up a bit of momentum. I did mention, subscribing to the Matchmaker platform, and I've been getting a lot of people contacting me saying I'd like to be on your podcast. So that's great to hear. I need to do a wee bit of research, get to know the people a wee bit more, think about what topics we're going to talk about, whether that would be of interest to both me and hopefully you, and then do the recording, get it packaged up and get it out. Now, I'm very, very pleased to tell you that at the time of recording I have recorded 1 interview, and I'm just in the editing process of that right now, and we'll get that packaged up. And I have 2 more solid ones in the work, and a number of people, as I mentioned there, that I've yet to get back to say, right, let's have that introductory call, let's get to know each other and see where we can take it. So it's going to be something that you'll see over the next wee while. I'm always looking for ideas, inspiration, guidance and advice from you as to what you would like to hear, what you would like to see covered or hear covered on the pods. And please don't hesitate to get in touch with me, even if it's a one-liner that says cover irrationality, cover communication barriers or something like that. Anything at all, please don't hesitate to reach out, especially if you have something that you would like to hear covered. What I'm also going to do from a bit of a housekeeping perspective going forward, I'm going to shorten down the content here, and hopefully you'll see that when you get notification of the pod, that whatever the minutes end up being at the end of today's pod, I'm not sure what that's going to be yet, then it's going to be less than before, because essentially the last few I've been creeping up on around about the 40-minute mark, 45 minutes sometimes, and in my opinion that's just too much. It's not too much from my side in terms of content creation and recording and packaging and delivery. I think it's just too much for people to consume. I personally don't like listening to podcasts that are over 30 minutes unless it's someone I really, really admire, or a topic or a guest that I would be really, really interested in hearing from. 30 minutes was always the target, folks, so I'm going to be cutting out basically the kind of second half of the pod. It's actually not even a half, I know literally it's not a half, but the second part, the second main portion of the pod, which is either the book review or, as I've been doing recently, the masterclass reviews. It's just a wee bit too much, and my intent at the very beginning was kind of twofold. One, I guess threefold now that I say that. One was to provide an oral overview of the blog, and if you don't read the blog, then at least you would get to hear me say what the blog is about. Now, it's never intended to be me reading out the blog. That's not what it is. It's more, I'll give you an idea of the overview of the blog. Some of it will be read out verbatim, but most of it is just a little bit more fluid, a little bit more fluent in terms of what I can say versus what I did write. And the second part is to keep it to 30 minutes, and I'm taking a blank now on what the third part was, but it was always, I guess the third part was never to overwhelm. Sorry, my apologies for that part there. But it was never to overwhelm you and get to a spot where there's just too much in an episode, so that when I ask you afterwards, what did you get from that? You say, I was a bit bamboozled, to be perfectly honest with you, Gary, because you started talking about this topic, you went to that topic, and then you finished with that topic. That's a lot to take in 45 minutes. So I'm going to dial it back a wee bit in terms of content delivery and hopefully in terms of timing. Obviously, I'm taking some time up on this particular pod to tell you about that, so that might creep up the timing a little bit, but going forward, it will be, my target is certainly, within a 30-minute time frame, and hopefully that will be good enough for you, and it will be a lot easier to consume. And similarly, just one last thing, on the interview series that I'm doing, I'm going to try and keep them between 20 and 30 minutes as well. The interview I did earlier on this week was roughly about 21 minutes, something like that. So hopefully that's going to be palatable enough that you would be inspired to listen to that as well. It's not too much of an intrusion on your time. So yes, that's a wee bit of housekeeping. What you can expect on this episode is an overview of the recent blog that I published last week there on the topic of fear, and essentially what it is, what it means for you, and how you can use it for your own good. And before that, I'll give you a wee bit of an overview of what I've learned since the last time that we chatted. So continuing on my Growth Day learnings, this month's learnings is on emotional freedom, and I just attended on Canada Day there, which is July 1st, a session, or a 4-hour session in fact. They do one of these major sessions on the 1st of every month. It doesn't matter what day it is, if it's a Saturday, a Sunday, a public holiday, whatever. I'm not 100% sure what would happen if it came up against an American public holiday, but the only one that I think would really come into play on that would be carte blanche across the entire America would be New Year's Day, and I'm not sure how they tackle New Year's Day down there. Anyway, so we went through emotional freedom, and I would like to talk a little bit more about that going forward, but I like to try and provide in this section or segment a little bit of a key concept. And one of the key concepts from this was at the very beginning actually, and Brendan Burchard had talked about emotions, feelings, moods and intentions. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I can get these a little bit mixed up. I can get these a little bit kind of mashed together and start to talk about emotions as feelings, or feelings as emotions, or such, and it doesn't then bode well for complete clarity within a conversation. So the key concept that he shared at the beginning, where emotions are a sense, and that sense is automatic, it's usually reactive and impulsive. Feelings are more meaning driven for you, for the individual. Moods can be made up of a lot of different emotions, and intentions are where we become conscious of what it is that we want to feel. So emotions are senses that are automatic, feelings are more meaning based, moods are made up of different emotions, intentions are being more intentional, just to continue to use that word, on how you want to feel about that. Lots more to that, and in terms of how long each of these last and what their impact can and would be if used on a positive sense or a negative sense, and I think I'll unpack that a little bit more going forward. Maybe even that might be a separate pod at some time as we go forward, but really enjoyed it. They always provide some frameworks, get some excellent keynote guest speakers to come in to talk about some topics and such as well. So as I say, that's going to be the topic for this month, emotional freedom, and I'll share more as I learn more. On the mastermind front, I do continue to work through the education. I actually left the class, believe it or not, this morning, because I realised that I had already taken the class earlier, and as we were going through I was thinking, wait a minute, but what they did was they changed the title. So in my table of contents, I look through when I'm looking to pick a new class for the week, because the classes are somewhat constant Monday to Friday, and I didn't have that title in, and I thought, okay, good, this is obviously a little bit of an advanced class based on something I did before. I attended, it was the exact same, so I did the polite, I'm just going to head out now, thanks very much, I'll review my notes from last time. So I get to record this in a little bit of an earlier time frame than I was hoping, which actually really helps me out from a time management for today in particular. But I'm still trying to decipher how to use their technical platform, which is an amalgam of a number of different platforms. Not literally, I don't think they've taken Calendly from a calendar management perspective and other, I won't mention any other brand names, from content, housing and delivery perspectives, but they've created their own and you can use it there. I'm kind of struggling, folks, to be perfectly honest, to try and get my calendar synced, to try and get my email synced, to try and get my social media synced. It's not super intuitive. Now, I'm not the most technical guy in the world, I would be the first to admit that, but it's not as easy as it should be. That said, it's brand new, and obviously with something brand new, it comes with teething troubles and user error. I'm completely open to that as well, but they're not making it easy for right now, I have to say, and it's getting a little bit frustrating. I don't want to use the technical challenges and limitations to prevent me from actually taking action and getting my course out there and getting, my coaching programs out there and continuing, with my other campaigns. So I'm working through what that means. I'm working through framing and reframing my overall coaching offering, my overall teaching, training programs, and such. So stay tuned on that. I will put some information out there shortly. And as I mentioned last time, the Blockers course will be launched imminently. I did put a post on social media saying coming soon, just to kind of try and generate a little bit of interest. And a little bit later this week, I'll be putting some more stuff out there to talk about a free masterclass that you can attend to get to whet your appetite essentially on what my foundational Blockers course is going to entail. And if that is of interest to you, I would love to have you along, and then we can get some people signed up for the course proper. On the social media front for recently, I have launched a Gary Gillen coaching Facebook page. I kind of resisted that for quite some time because I'm just not a big social media person, but I thought, you know what, I have about 500 in inverted commas friends on Facebook. If 5 or 10% of them sign up for Gary Gillen coaching and they get the daily updates and other content that I put out there, that's another 5 or 10%, 50 or 100 people or so, whatever the number is, of people that would have an opportunity to serve themselves and hopefully have an opportunity to spread the word to other people about the work that they're doing on themselves. Every little helps. I'll put a link to the Facebook page in the blurb for this pod, and if you feel like subscribing, please by all means do. And I kind of went all in on LinkedIn over the last little while as well, and Facebook, of course. I'm kind of doing it simultaneously, and every business day I'm posting a video of some description. It's I should actually have the titles memorized by now because it's the second week I've been doing it, but it's Monday Mindset, Tuesday Truth, Wednesday Wisdom, Thursday Thanks, and Friday Findings. So, and they all have a bit of a theme. And if you feel like checking those out on either LinkedIn or Gary Gillen Coaching Facebook, please by all means do. They're kind of short. I'm trying to get them under a minute. Right now, I'm around about the 2-minute mark, similar to this podcast. It's a little bit of a work in progress. And one thing I did want to mention while we're talking about social media, did you know, I don't even know if I've mentioned it on these podcasts, that you can sign up for my mailing list. So by signing up for the mailing list, then when I publish a podcast, when I publish a blog or anything else that I feel is worthy of your attention, which I haven't done yet, by the way, you then part of the mailing list and you'll get that information first. Everything that I do first goes to the mailing list, not the social media posts in and of themselves. I don't want to inundate people every single day with an email, but when I'm launching something specific, and eventually there will be gifts, there will be free downloads, there will be opportunities to get involved, there will be discounts for future offerings and such. So I would encourage you to go to my website, and I can talk about that at the very end of the podcast today as well, and subscribe. It's just at the bottom of the homepage there. Put your email address in, I'll send you a quick email thanking you for joining the community, and you'll get to hear everything first. So anyway, on to the actual content, and of course I am going to talk about an overall supporting summary of blog number 21, which was called Understanding Fear. And this wasn't the original topic that I was going to do for the last blog, but it just came up on a couple of signs, subliminal signs almost, had came up to give me a bit of inspiration as to what, why fear would be a good thing to talk about, and I'll explain that as I go through the content. So I did start the blog by acknowledging that fear, in my experience anyway, is a word that's not typically associated with a positive experience. Now, I do want to caveat that immediately, straight off the bat, as we would say here in Canada, that you could be watching a scary movie, or you could go to like one of those haunted houses that come out at Halloween or something like that, and you already know the whole entire purpose of that is that you're going to experience moments of fright and fear. And I do know some folks who absolutely love that. I am 100% not one of those folks. I have no cognitive understanding as to why being scared is entertaining. But then I also appreciate that everyone is different. I don't like being scared at all. But in general terms, when fear is present, it doesn't ruminate, certainly in the moment, with a positive feeling. And I did mention on a recent social media post that some of my coaching clients are dealing with challenges, and the challenges that I've started to kind of realize over time through continuously working with clients and then also with the ongoing studies that I'm doing, they come under 4 different categories. The challenges are either associated with or surrounding their fears, their frustrations, their dreams, or their desires. I'll say that again. Their fears, their frustrations, their dreams, or their desires. So think about that are those topics for you and the areas that you're currently struggling in. Just even the thing that you're struggling with most right now, does it relate to any of these topics? And the chances are, I imagine, that your struggle will involve at least an element of one or maybe more of these as you move forward. And the reason that's important is the more that you can identify and acknowledge where your struggles are coming from, the better chance you have then to identify their root cause, their impact, and then remediation for each of those to get yourself to a better spot in the future. So what comes up for you when you think about fear? Is it something enjoyable and pleasurable, or is it something that's more sinister, that's more dark for you? And what sort of memories are front and center? Good, bad, indifferent? Have you really thought about fear too much today? Think about that as we continue through the content here. So what is fear? It's a distressing emotion aroused by the perception of impending danger. This is from dictionary.com. It's just abbreviated from dictionary.com. Or something that causes feelings of dread or apprehension, or the anticipation of the possibility that something unpleasant will occur, which is kind of almost what I said at the first part there. But the main important thing that I got from those explanations from dictionary.com was that fear is categorized as an emotional response that is triggered by a perceived threat, the key part being emotional on that. So from my coaching training and life experiences, the cycle that your thoughts influence, so the cycle is that your thoughts influence your feelings or emotions, which then inspire your actions. And I don't know if I've mentioned on a previous pod or not, I had the first two mixed up before. I used to think your feelings or emotions influenced your thoughts, which influenced your actions. And it's not that case. I understand it now. It's very clear in my head now. So putting that in the context of fear, the thought is that there is potential danger that is imminent in your life, which then causes feelings or emotions of dread, distress, apprehension, which then leads you to take some sort of action which will help you reduce, avoid, or eliminate the perceived danger. Think about that. Your thoughts, your feelings or emotions, and your actions. This is for life. This is not just for fear. So some examples of fear, maybe that will help add a wee bit more context here. There's a variety of them. This is not a panacea of every fear that you could ever have, and anything else you have outside of this list is not a fear. But just to provide a wee bit of contextual understanding of what it is, prior to kind of moving on. It's the fear of failure, not living up to expectations, rejection, criticism, being stuck in a job that you hate, being stuck in a relationship you hate, and being, not being able to overcome some past limitations, not being able to provide for yourself, for your loved ones, fear of missed opportunities for your own growth, for pending or future success, fear of being judged or misunderstood, fear of not finding happiness, not finding your one true love, not finding fulfillment, or fear of meaning, of genuinely not making a meaningful impact in the world. It might be something that comes up for you. So what fear is not, it's not irrational or abnormal to feel fear. Quite simply, it's absolutely completely normal to feel fear at times that are appropriate to you, and that's the key part of that. Fear is also not a sign of weakness. And to put that in a kind of bit of a ridiculous opposite swing there, it's like saying someone who is happy all the time is strong. You simply just don't know that. You don't know, because of your emotional response, what your characteristics and your character traits are. So it's not a sign of weakness. It's not always rational or logical. Spontaneity can come in to play with fear, which can then, in the moment, exaggerate your perception of that danger that is present, which then kind of turns it into something more than it is. And if you let me indulge on that a little bit, in 2014, I was at a Rangers convention, an ARSA convention in Toronto, and as part of the Charity Foundation event that we did the walk of the CN Tower, and the CN Tower is a very, very large tower, and I have a very healthy respect for heights. So we went up there on, I can't even remember what day it was, maybe the Saturday morning of the conventions. The conventions are always Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and we went up there, we got the boiler suits on, we got all the harness equipment on. And as soon as we got outside the CN Tower to do the kind of edge walk, I just was completely consumed by fear. And I did a thesis on safe working at height in the construction industry as part of my undergraduate degree. So I have been exposed to heights. I used to be a painter back home. I was up ladders and scaffolds all the time, and I had a little bit of, certainly not a panic attack, but something fairly close to that. And then I got myself to the point where I had to give self-talk to say, you're being irrational, you're being illogical. Thousands of people have done this before you. There is zero chance that anything is going to go wrong here. Just try and enjoy it. I did a reasonable job of that, to be perfectly honest with you folks, but got through it. And then when I look back, I've got a photograph of the event. I look so super cool and happy. That was not that was not my mindset at all at the time. Definitely not rational, and definitely not logical either. Also, fears are not phobias. I did explain that while a phobia can be considered as part of the fear family, they're more usually intense and irrational fears of something specific. For example, say spiders or heights, to use the previous example there. They're not a lack of courage, and here we're really just talking about perception, both your perception of yourself and other people's perception of you, and how you act and react to something fearful being introduced into your life. And I genuinely, firmly believe that identifying, acknowledging and addressing your fears is one of the most courageous things that you can do. So quite how that would be perceived in a negative light is kind of baffling to me, to be perfectly true, honest with you. So and fear is not the same for everyone. It's absolutely, definitely not one size fits all. We're all different. We're all made different, and we all have different ways of reacting. And this is foundational. When fully understands and fully should be comprehended, I should say, to help you understand and combat the judgment that might be present, that might skew your own perception of a person or a situation when fear is introduced as well. So it's definitely not the same for everyone. And if you start to then judge and bring judgment in as someone, for example, is being ridiculous when they are experiencing a fear situation, that's not fair, and it's not cool. Judgment in general is not fair, and it's not cool. So types of fear, just to kind of go with some of the examples that I had earlier, we have rational fear, a kind of logical foundation that's connected to real threats that would exist. For example, a firefighter who has fear of getting burned by a fire. There's irrational fear, I talked about that a little bit earlier, disproportionate to the actual threat that exists. And the example I provided in the blog, I did have a bit of a chuckle to myself when I was doing this, but it was the fear of being bitten by a poisonous snake when you don't have a snake, you don't know anyone who has a snake, and you don't plan on going anywhere that snakes are likely to be. That could be a little bit irrational, bit of a ridiculous example, but kind of true. Primal fears, they're built into us, they're innate, and can be somewhat universal. Fear of the dark, fear of being chased by a bad person, fear of loud noises, that come out of the blue as a surprise, fear of heights and such. Conditioned fears learned from your own experiences and external influences that have been a factor in your life. I mentioned some of those earlier, but the example I provided was a fear of failure. Social fears related to social interactions. One of the more common ones is people have a fear of public speaking. People have a fear of some sort of social rejection, some sort of criticism in public and not being taken seriously, and maybe the potential impact that could come on the back of that. Pathological fears is another example where they're persistent and excessive, typically stemming from some sort of mental health conditions, and the example provided there is anxiety disorders. Trauma-induced fears from experience or witnessing something traumatic, and the example I provided was losing your job after you've witnessed a round of layoffs, if you've seen or been involved in a car accident, if you've been unfortunate enough to see a plane crash or some description like that, but something trauma-induced. Vicarious, developed through observing others' fears. Just because my mum or dad feared mice, then I suddenly automatically fear mice or spiders or heights or hard work or something like that, but some vicarious fears. And then the last one I talked about was cultural fears, influenced by your cultural beliefs and norms associated with your culture. And the example provided there was dishonouring your family in a culture where family honour is very, very highly valued. So is this helping your overall understanding of how complex the topic of fear can become? I hope it is. It's certainly not as clear-cut as I originally thought it was before I became a little bit more educated and enlightened in the topic. So consequences of not managing your fear properly: stress and anxiety absolutely would be part of that, and they can lead to further health, mental and physical implications for you, leading just to essentially undesirable conditions for you to be living in, which then can impact your closest network at the same time. Also, another consequence could be inaction. Your relationship with your fears just may prevent you from taking critical steps, making decisions, and a general paralysis by analysis sort of situations that would come where just nothing happens. You freeze, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. And then the last one is an overall reduced quality of life, and all roads really lead to this, which just can limit your enjoyment and your sense of fulfillment and your sense of progress and growth in your life. And it's like anything that isn't managed well enough, negative connotations are pretty much almost guaranteed. And with fear, it seems a wee bit more debilitating in terms of the impacts that it can have on your life, and thus afflicting those in your network, as I had mentioned. And that's why I thought it was important to write about this particular topic. The benefits of managing fear properly: enhanced resilience. Good experience help build resilience, and successfully dealing with fear or a challenging situation in general builds resilience to help you face your future challenges. Improved decision making, like knowing how you make decisions is important, knowing how you act and react is important, and recognizing and managing fear allows you to make more rational, well-informed, thought-out decisions, which would then hopefully increase your chances of favourable outcomes from said decisions. And in personal growth, of course, this is my go-to in every single one of my writings and blogs, and it's kind of why we're all here, isn't it? Confronting and overcoming your fears can result in significant growth opportunities for you. So on to the 7 steps to manage your fears. And before I get to talking about the 7 steps, I did want to take some time to talk about a very important foundational matter here. And not just for fear management, but for general life growth for you. A key component to managing your fears is firstly acknowledging and validating that they exist in the first place. So quite simply, if we pretend or deny that our fears exist, that they're not even there, then we have almost zero chance of taking any meaningful steps towards managing them. And managing them will mean different things to different people, and that's part of the 7 steps that we'll get to here. But denying their existence is essentially a closed experience for everyone involved and absolutely doesn't serve you on any level whatsoever, and is holding you back, and quite unfairly holding you back, I may add. So if you're listening to this, it means you are interested in growth, and so listen to this part. You deserve better. And I'm going to say that again. You deserve better. And how to get better is by initially acknowledging and validating what is going on. So the topic, of course, this time is fear. Insert another word there and think about acknowledging and validating literally what's going on for you. So in order to do this, you need to get involved with self-reflection. Take the time to understand what it is you're fearful of, why, and however you do this, just do it. I suggested journaling in the blog. Pick something that works for you and give it a go to give you the best opportunity to self-reflect. Have open conversations, like normalise the conversations surrounding fears or any difficult topic for that matter. That's very important. Talk to whomever you think would be a willing listener, and I can't understate the power of verbalising difficult topics to help make them feel less overwhelming and more manageable for you. Accept your imperfections. No one is perfect, and get this, not even me. And I truly mean that. And everyone has fears. Everyone has fears. So accept that your fears are normal for you, and these are just your life experience that you can, now that you have enlightenment, that you can help manage them. Educate yourself, learn about yourself, try to understand more about the nature and root cause of your fears, what they mean for you, where they came from, what impact they're having on your life, and then move forward from there. And then use all of this experience to help start to reframe your thoughts. Challenge negative thoughts by replacing them with more balanced, more serving, more realistic thoughts. And once again, this is not only for fears, of course. Any negative self-talk you engage in, use this self-reflection, open conversations, accepting your imperfections, educating yourself and reframing your thoughts, and you'll be in a better spot. Okay, so acknowledging and validating is so important for your life, folks. So please remember this. And we'll move on to the final part of the pod today, which is the 7 steps that's going to help you manage your fears. So number 1, of course, is acknowledge and validate, which I have just went into depth about. Number 2 is understanding the fear. So determining whether it's rational or irrational and exploring its roots. I'd suggest writing it down and assigning a category to it to help you establish what it means for you for now. Because your fears may change over time as you navigate through life. Reframe your thoughts is number 3. Consider another way to think about it being your fear. Perhaps ask yourself, what's the opposite way to think about this? And by the way, this is quite a common question that I use with my coaching clients as well, when they come with a specific challenge or interpretation of a circumstance or situation. What's the opposite way to think about this? And it just helps shift your perspective and can help you start to see maybe some positive aspects or potential positive outcomes that can come from a situation. Number 4 is gradually exposing yourself to the fear bit by bit. Can help desensitize you to the experience of the fear, thus increasing your experiential data that you're going to get from that fear, which will help you with your decision making and consequence management as you move forward. For example, like, was it as bad as you thought? How many times have you ruminated on something, dreaded something, feared something, then the actual event happens, and afterwards you're like, actually that wasn't too bad, and you feel somewhat euphoric about that. And notwithstanding all the pain, the mental anguish that you put yourself through, maybe even manifesting itself into physical anguish and debilitating conditions, that's not a cool thing to do. Pre-worrying is a literal absolute waste of your time. I'm fairly sure I've said that before. Number 5 is seeking support. Have an appropriate and reliable network for you is so important to you. Talk to them. Consider supplementary support if you think you need to consult with external parties, professionals or whatnot, and don't be closed to who might be able to help you. You might be surprised at who could be in your support network as the more you start to consider look, learn and listen in that realm. And number 6 is mindfulness and meditation. Any form of mindfulness and meditation practice that works for you will work for you. I mentioned yoga. You could be doing meditative practices or such. Whatever works for you to give yourself that opportunity to be more mindful and get yourself into a meditative state is going to be serving of you as well. And the final one, kind of leading on from that, is breathing exercises. Deep and controlled breathing techniques have been proven, through science to help calm your nervous system and reduce any negative physical manifestations of your fears at the same time. So these help, folks. They truly help. Acknowledge and validate, understand, reframe, expose yourself to the fear, seek support, mindfulness and meditation, and breathing exercises. They do help. So please try them, even just one of them, and see how they can help you identify and manage your fears going forward. I finished off the blog with the Coach Gaz Challenge, which I'll mention here. How much time do you spend on fear management? Consider your most prevalent fear right now, and then use the 7 steps above, or apply as many of the 7 steps that I mentioned previously there that are practical for you for this particular fear, and gauge how much more clarity that you have of the fear now, and what's coming up, and what techniques you can use to start to manage these as you move forward. And as always, please do let me know how I can help going forward. I would be more than delighted to help you manage and navigate through this topic as we go forward. Okie dokie. A little bit longer for this one, as I explained earlier. I appreciate that I didn't manage to get it under the 30 minutes, but I hope that this episode has been a valuable use of your time, and that you will continue to join me as we move forward together. If you did find it valuable, please by all means pass it on to at least one more like-minded person that might be interested in at least this topic or the series of topics. And don't forget to take a peek at GaryGillen.com. As I mentioned at the top of the pod there, you scroll down to the bottom of the homepage and you can subscribe to my newsletter. I promise I do not bombard you with nonsense or garbage or any nuttiness that isn't going to serve you. Everything that I send is intended to serve, and hopefully that's the case as we go forward. And you'll find on the website there all the previous blogs, all the previous pods, and some other information in and around the coaching framework that I use. Until next time, my friends, please do take care of yourself, and all the very best in your ongoing journey, and I will talk to you soon. Cheerio for now.